Hey, it's This Week in vCons. Hi, it's Jeff Pulver together with Thomas Howe, and this is This Week in vCons ending the week of May 1st. I can't believe it's already May. It's a full moon here in 2026, and
Oh yeah.
wow, how was your week, Thomas? What's going on with vCons for you?
Oh, rabbit, rabbit, rabbit
Rabbit,
by
rabbit.
the
What does that mean?
So it's an old New England uh tradition that at the beginning of a month, before you say a word or your feet even touch the floor, if you say rabbit, 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 you have good luck for the entire month.
Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. Amen for all. Okay, I love that.
Yeah, so hey, I'm great. I've actually had a really good week in vCons. My week in vCons was actually doing vCons, and
There you go. What's better than that?
right, yeah, I've been we've got real deployments and all that, and I've been working with a pretty significant contact center, and we've got a conserver running there, which is doing vCons after the fact, and we're also doing real time analysis during the call, which has been very fun. And I got to tell you, I'm really believing in this whole vCon thing now.
Has the implementation you're working on changed the way that company does business or will do business?
Yeah, it has. And you know what? And I think I see a real parallel here that I think is, for people of a certain age, they're going to get it now. And so what I'm seeing is, I remember back writing software before the web, and one of the most difficult things about writing software before the web was keeping it running.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Remember the blue screens of death? And
Yeah.
the first time I met Henning Schultzeren, who ended up being the CTO of the FCC and one of the primary authors on SIP, was he had this Columbia seminar where he was giving the talk with the CTO of Nortel, where they had finally figured out how to test all the two-feature interactions on a DMS, right?
Wow.
And so what that means is if you test a feature, which is like on hold or transfer, that's pretty easy because there's only 500 features on a DMS, right?
Right.
But once you start putting them together, like I'm on hold and a call barges in, it's
Right.
a feature interaction, right? And that exponentiates. So it's really difficult to do. And all that stuff was important because things would fall down. And like, so you have to make these 100 million call tests and billion call tests before you let it out of the wall, because who knows, right? And then what happened when the web came was, hey, you know what? Things don't crash anymore because they run in the browser, and you don't get blue screens of death because of the browser. And then it really changed the way we write software because you could be faster, and you have to be so careful, and you could write things faster, right? And so what I'm really seeing is that vCons allow you to write these voice applications and insights so much faster. And I think I knew that from the analysis side. We've had these mashups, these mashup competitions for a while with people, really, putting together these really neat applications from TadHack and Alan. And now we're doing real-time work, which is, using vCon at the beginning of a call, not the end of a call.
Right.
And I'm realizing that, oh my God, it's making this so much easier. And I really think we're going to go into this golden era of communications applications and being able to use customer conversations just really natively in applications without all the stupid heavy lifting that we had to do before. I feel it's going to be a lot more easy.
And so it sounds like you're talking about a shift of going from reactive to proactive communication.
Yeah, it is a shift, actually, a lot like I hate to keep coming back to the past, but I'll give you one other example, which I think is really interesting. So if you remember before iTunes,
Yes.
when you wanted to buy music, you went to a record.
I was going to 8-track and cassette. I didn't know how far back I wanted to go.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to go that far back, but even to the CD era, right?
Yeah.
You had to buy a CD which had a complete album on it. You have to go to a record store to get it.
Right.
CD, right? And then you couldn't buy just one song. You had to buy the CD.
The whole thing.
Right. And they didn't have all the music in the store, right? They only had to stock the popular stuff.
Right.
And so, but as a music buyer, that's what we lived with. And you love music, I love music too. And so that was how we lived. After iTunes, it was a different world because we could buy one song at a time.
Right. True.
right? We could buy any one of the songs. We were no longer, constricted by the physical
I still have
location.
like 500 albums in the outer room from where I'm sitting, and I'm staring at them. Some of them go back 50 something years. And,
Okay. Is that because you're a hoarder or because you like music? I'm just asking for
it's both, I think. Part of it is my musical collection, and then it was part of my parents' musical collection. But I found like the original Blue album from Joni Mitchell, the original pressing.
wow.
Like I like my parents. Like I grew up listening to folk music, and so
Yeah.
I have like from the 50 plus years old music from I have Dylan's original album, some Beatles, Joni Mitchell, Janis Ian, all
I
that.
always,
And it's all sitting close.
I learned something because I thought that Joni Mitchell was only on 8 tracks. Are you saying this? The action joke? Okay. So, anyways,
the point taken. But we're now. But that stuff.
But the point is, when that happened, the business case for buying a one song was much easier. Music flourished because the business case was it's a smaller bar to step over now. Just one song, $1, all the songs. And I think the times and places where we use customer communications now has to have a really big use case. Like if you think about, Genesis. Genesis is a big budget thing, and only big companies can afford that, right? I don't have one in my house. You don't have one in your house, right?
No.
But when it becomes much, much easier to put together and faster, then the business cases we have to think about don't have to be as big.
And in fact, the business cases go from being a vertical to being horizontal. And we're really talking about unleashing the power of the conversation to the everyone, the every person, the every company. And so really, if you pull it back, traditionally, sometimes, the conversations are being used for lawful wiretap or illegal wiretap. We won't go into the politics there, but you have wiretap, you have call centers, and then really not much else. And now we're talking about in the era of the vCon and the ability to now capture conversations as memory, as assets. Every business can start thinking about how they could leverage those conversations, and that will change how people work. Though it's going to change how people manage. It's going to change how everything works, and it's a big thing because when you can encapsulate that conversation, understand the context to the content that's there, everything's different. And then to your other point, that we're now living at a time when people can create applications that are leveraging the data that's embedded in those conversations and bring it to light and raise it up. That gives you insights and ahas that you never even saw coming. And I think that's one of those sort of what I'll call the second derivative or third derivative of the evolution of vCon is the empowering of everyone to start understanding what was said, and infer from that, and then move from being reactive companies to proactive companies. And whether you're managing a call center or not, if you have a team of people who are communicating internally with customers, you start to extract value from places where you just didn't have the bandwidth to even think about what was being implied.
That's correct. Yep. And getting back to what you've been saying lately, which I think is also very true, voice is back.
Voice is back. Yes, we are back.
Voice is back. And I think it's back because it's not as hard. Voice for all kinds of reasons is, was hard to do, especially on the application side. Right. Well, I'm sorry. So voice was hard for people who are trained to do it, which is what we are, right? And impossible for people to do who weren't trained on it. And what's happening now, I think, is because of all of that, I think voice is back because it's now an accessible data type.
I'd go even further. I think that for the cool kids out there that are playing with the voice AI and stuff, it was first I looked at voice coming back. Post WhatsApp and post people starting this concept of sending voice memos to each other when driving or other things where they couldn't text. Hopefully, we started seeing voice being captured, and now that shifts away. And people are still doing that, but now that with all the people building with and interacting with AI through voice, and the fact that Anthropic talks about the voice prompting being more effective than the text prompting, kind of reinforces it. And if you've ever played with those agents that are trying to talk to you, you'll see that there's a very high beta being put on voice. And so you reel it back and voice is back. And that has a positive effect on the entire voice ecosystem, no matter where you are in that stack. And the other thing which you're implying, I think, is that we're seeing the evolution of a new of a new voice stack, a new communication stack.
We really are. We really are. And that voice stack is, and you said it's going to make it horizontal, which is absolutely true. But I also think it's going to make it because it's so easily horizontal, we'll see a lot more verticals. I think this is going to be a big change and big growth in the voice market, because now the friction is gone. The friction of being able to use it as data is gone. And so that is a huge thing. So my weekend, actually one other thing, I'm not sure this will resonate, but I kind of think it does for me. Sometimes, I'm a pretty empathetic guy. I love my dogs, and I almost treat animals like people, which is not quite right, but it's kind of the way, right? And I get kind of like, sometimes I think about, well, is it okay that we've got, chickens and cages and all that kind of stuff? But I'll tell you one thing. Thank God we started eating chickens, because there are many more chickens than there would have been if we didn't. And I think what we're doing here now is like saying, you know what, there's going to be so many more opportunities to have voice and use voice and be in those applications that it's going to be like on every menu. It's going to be on every menu, because you can put it on every menu. And just as you were saying, it's one of our natural interfaces. We talk to each other. It's the way that we interact emotionally. I know that I'm actually having a little bit of a problem, to be honest, about that with the whole anthropic voice thing. Not because I don't think it's right. I think it is. It's just I've been typing into my computer for 40 years. And so, like, for some reason, like my interface to computers, it involves my fingers. They don't involve my lips. So I'm not sure quite how to talk to a computer yet. So it's sort of like cultural. Like I can talk to it now.
Yeah, no, and I think because it's like your fingers are programmed to communicate differently than your voices, and your brain is wired differently, and so you're doing a real-time translation. It's a different way to communicate, and that's very subtle.
It is. And how many times do you say
Yeah, there's many.
I say it all the time when I look at the profile.
And we edit it out when we're making videos, but the is there, and sort of that it's that pause to allow your brain to catch up to your to where you're at. And so for my week in vCons, I'll mention this because last time I think I was giving away free endpoints. Cool part is that free will dial-up is back. We're onboarding people slowly, thanks to some meaningful feedback. We decided there are going to be a couple of things that are changing. The right now is friction, because being in 2026, I wanted to KYC every endpoint to make sure we had no bad actors. The reality is the people who are coming into FWD right now are people who used to be on FWD and friends of people who used to be on FWD. So I have implied trust. I know trust is a bad thing at times, but I'm trusting. But we're going to have two types of users on FWD: the people who just get on because you're there, and if you want to have a blue check mark, sort of like authentication, you can KYC, and that way you'll be on top. And then when our user directory goes live, the people who are check marked are going to be not only check marked in to be at the top of the directory, but we're already talking to third parties who want to interconnect. And so only the people who are KYC'd will have the ability, the privilege, if you will, to to do those interconnects. But for everyone out there, there are vCons being created for your account. And now if you log into Free Will Dial-Up, you can actually see a place for a webhook, and you can start building. And so what I'm hoping for over the next 6 months are for people who maybe participated in TED Hack, people who have had these applications and they want to demo it to the world. Well, guess what? FWD should be a really good source for vCons creation. And if you have an idea for a service that you like to demonstrate, we're looking for people who are building. And if you already have your applications built and you want to point to your own bucket of vCons, well, hey, you're invited to join.
Excellent. That's a great idea. I'm not sure if it's in scope or not, but I did that IETF vCon.
It'd be great. By the way, we can create an FWD account for that, and we can let people come in and play with that, right?
That's great. Yes. Right? Yeah. Well, you know what? I think we should do that. And and there's a couple other things which I think should get the same treatment. And and so I'll think about those. And do you think people know what a blue check is now? Like blue checks are like part of our vernacular.
I don't know whether we'll make mine purple, of course, but the idea is that we
You can
verify.
make it purple. Make it
Well, we
purple.
do purple checks,
Make it
and
purple.
I think it's really about the verification or an ability to trust. So the idea with KYC or know your customer comes from banking. I just thought, I'm adopting from amateur radio in the U.S. Part 97.1 of the FCC that this is an experimental place. We're not a telephone network. We are doing communication end-to-end IP. And it's really looking for the do-it-yourselfers, the people who are looking to experiment, and those people who want to play and play well. And what's nice is on LinkedIn, people are discovering the FWD free will dial-up back post is coming in, and I'm being reacquainted with people I communicated with 20 years ago, which is really cool.
That's
wonderful. And I think that when we look to how vCons happen, they're going to be people who stand up, and go full scale in the beginning. But they're going to be people who also discover the magic, right? And they're going to come at this with fresh eyes and see things that we just don't see, because they have a different background than we do. And so my hope is to help bring together the world. And the nice thing about FWD is that if you have connectivity, it doesn't matter if you're in Kigali in Rwanda or you're sitting in Cape Cod, we can talk to each other. And we can build applications, and we're living in a time, the internet, 30 years ago, I used to talk about the idea that there will come a time, it doesn't matter where you live, as long as you have internet access, you can contribute to that ecosystem. I think we're at that time now where builders can build from wherever. And yes, there'll be people building commercial grade applications, but FWD for me is that test layer. It's a place for people to experiment.
And it's also culture. I mean, like, let's face it. We got to honor the culture. A lot of us got here through FWD. A lot of us, we discovered that, and it's about community, and and it's about us, and not about
It is always about community. Do you know, Thomas? I've been blessed. I traveled. I don't know, a number of years ago. I was in Korea for a short trip, and I ran into an FWD. I was on the street outside the hotel I was staying at, and so I met an FWDer just like that. And I kind of find that fascinating, because it was the architecture, the SIP architecture of FWD was the launch architecture more or less for Vonage. And I think that we don't even think about the cause and effect of things we're doing. And I really think that the more people start to play and understand that we're now living in this unbounded opportunity where voice is back, the tooling is there. The opportunity for the first time to do service creation is available to the masses. Carl Ford would remember this. I had a domain called coolnewservices.com. I somehow convinced Techelec to put an STP in my old office. I don't know if it was $1 million STP. I wanted to build on the SS7 network Cool New Services. We never used it because we never could figure out how to. But now I'm hoping that we can offer next generation services to be thought through, or at least applications running on vCon, powered by vCon. And that will be proliferated through FWD, which is really an open network where people can rely on. It is what we are. And I'm starting to get ideas on how we can use that as a way to help educate. Because from the vCon Foundation, and I'll just end this, my part update is, during the month of April, we had 5 new companies join the vCon Foundation, and that's growing. And I think part of our mandate is to help educate and to help educate people what vCons are, which is why in May we have 2 roadshow gatherings. There's a roadshow next week in San Diego. Conveniently, I was invited to speak at a compliance conference in San Diego, so why not?
Hey, right, and it's San Diego, so.
Why not? And so that's May 6th, and then on May 13th will be a bigger gathering. The vCon Roadshow, vCon Foundation Roadshow gets to New York City, to Manhattan, and it'll be really the first gathering we've hosted in New York in a long time. And so it's for anyone who's interested in that intersection of voice and AI, and if you're watching This Week in vCon, if you're anywhere near New York, come out to join us. It's going to be a fun group of people. There's a rumor that Thomas might be able to make it on May 13th. I heard that earlier today, so we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, is that Mother's Day weekend?
Mother's Day is Mother's Day, I guess, is on that Sunday, and this is Wednesday.
Bring your mother.
There you go. And bring your ideas. And hey, this is This Week in vCons. It's already, we're about 20 minutes in. It's almost time to say goodbye. But if you're watching the show and you're building in the vCon ecosystem and you want to talk about what you're doing, reach out to Thomas or myself. We're happy to talk. And don't be shy about that. And if you're interested in what vCons are, what are some great resources to point people to, Thomas? What do you suggest?
Well, I love Conservative.io. That's the open software, open documentation set. You can visit the IETF working group that's working hard on vCons. We've got all your Substack is a great place to learn more about it. And we're at vConic. We're always happy to talk to people who are interested in vCon. So
there you go. Well, Thomas, thanks for joining. I'll see you next week on This Week in vCons. Until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning into This Week in vCons.